Welcome, everybody, and thank you all for being here this morning. I am Coach Les, and I'm here with my favorite podcast partner, Sujata Tiwari, who wrote a book called Against All Odds. Here we are. And no retakes, no manuals, real life lessons. Sujata has accumulated a wealth of experience during her life, leading to insights and knowledge that cannot be coached or taught in a class. She's a mother, a wife, a journalist, a consultant, an activist, a leader, and businesswoman domestically and internationally. And in sharing her story, Sujata strives to provide readers and watchers of all backgrounds in any part of the world with real life examples on how to deal with the unpredictable nature of everyday life. And we are here today to follow a conversation and continue a stream of conversation that we started the other day. How do we treat people who make mistakes? How does it occur? What does having the courtroom dramas do to a society as a whole? And one of the things that we've opened up in the past couple days in sharing this topic is the fact that we're all human. We all make mistakes. So what gives people the right to stand around and look down on people that make mistakes, gang up on, create rooms of conversation where we harass and look down on people because they somehow their mistake is worse than somebody else's? So the conversation tonight, one of the things that we want to look at is just another level of, when we see people make mistakes, we go into a store and we make a mistake on the register. And somebody looks, and I'm trying to remember, because Sujata and I were talking about this the other night, and the mistake that happens when it's against a patron, it's okay. When it's against the store, it's an offense. It's a legal offense. Is that how you put it, Sujata? I can't remember.
I can give the scenario if you let me.
Well, you can talk anytime. we talk openly all the time on this platform, so you don't have to wait for me.
So I was telling you of a case which is like a real life case which has happened and which I happen to know about is that picture the scene that there is a person who goes to the grocery departmental store consistently. So that grocery departmental store he goes every time, right? And every week if he goes, he spends assuming about anywhere between 150 to $300. So in a month he would be spending about 1200. Now if on two occasions when you are at the self checkout kiosk, when you have to sort of scan the item on the barcode machine, it makes a little beep, right? Each time you scan, and so you know that that has been added to the list in front of you. But when you're in a hurry and you're doing things fast enough, sometimes a small sachet which is costing 20 cents does not go through. You may not have realized it, rest of it is all there, but maybe in the system they realize that it is not there or something, or maybe somebody from the store was seeing. So if it happens once or twice, they actually make a police complaint. Whereas there are many times when the store itself has overcharged the customer, where they have added things, they have double clicked on an item. Instead of one thing, they have added maybe two. Maybe it's their mistake or whatever, but when it comes to them, then you have to produce the receipt, you have to show that you did not take it and it was not added to your packet. So th- when it comes to the store, then there's a different thing. Then it is a mistake which they would like to say it was a mistake and we should not make a hue and cry. But when it is about the customer, then this is how they treat. I mean, for such a simple thing, what is 20 cents when you are spending so many things? You mean to say somebody would really do that? I mean, so it's like the moral of the story is it's always one standard for the others and one standard for myself. That's what human beings do. And being human is not also common. I mean, if we all were really human, there would be a lot of misery, which would be avoided in this world. I rest my case.
So one of the things that I just saw in how you said it, Sujata, is, um, and I just thought of this as you were saying it. This is how I'm rewording part of it: is how do we treat people who make a mistake? Do companies have a different standard? Does that make sense, Sujata?
Yes, absolutely. Always they have a different sense.
And my question for, if they have a different standard, it's like, why is it different that a company gets to have a different standard than an individual person? For me, it ought to be that the company has more grace than the individual person, because they have the ability to have more grace. Does that make sense?
Yes, that should be the case, but that isn't the case.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a very I don't it's one of those things for me where I'm not quite sure I understand. I mean, I understand that a business has to be black and white, and I understand that there is an opportunity there. I also see that the for me, the company, quote unquote, ought to have better and be held even more accountable due to the fact that they have machinery, more people checking, and the higher ability due to the fact that they do it over and 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 over again. Does that make sense, Sujata?
Yes, absolutely. With so much in place, they still are not really 100% for the customers, right? And then we have the oxymoron statement that, customer is always right even when they're wrong. So that's how it is, even in personal life. Uh, you make a huge cry about some mistakes which probably were accidents or which were not intentionally done. And you only think about yourself first, and you are ready to put down a person if they've made a mistake, right? You could let it go, you could be compassionate, you could make allowances and just let it be. There could be
Mm.
so many reasons why a person made a mistake, right? Or a so-called mistake. That's what I said. How do we define mistake? One could be having a bad day, one could having challenges, right? So you need to be a little compassionate and give grace. Not ready to fly off the handle and not ready to judge and put put people in a box.
And yet, if some of you that are listening to this, if you are here, have been here for a while on Clubhouse, and you've gone to some of these rooms where on those rooms, David will be right with you in just a second. There, what happens is they crucify people. They only know of part of the facts. They only share part of the facts. And then they are speaking badly about people. And they've got 1,000 people in the room. Most who have never met the person, never seen the person, have no idea, and yet they're being subjected to this story about this individual where they don't even know all the facts. Was that clear, Sujata?
Yes, exactly. When we don't know and when we don't know the facts, how do we sit in a room judging and listening to a courtroom drama when actually we are not even entitled to do such things?
So I'd love to pass the mic to, because I saw Fionn put her thumbs up in agreement with you. I'd love to hear from actually both people up on stage. So as to their thought here, if they've had some experience themselves, and or if they have a question, whatever you'd like to share, I'm going to pass the mic over to you. Fionn, go ahead. The mic is yours. Are you able to click off mic? She's clapping. Yeah. All right. Well, in the time being, Michelle, did you want to share?
No, came to my mind is Biden's son. The things he's done, they're not doing anything. They're not persecuted. But if it's Trump's kids, oh wow. It's talking about standards. How are we supposed to handle that? Do we forgive them? Do we pray for them? They're teaching the children. They're teaching. They're like just saying it's okay to make these mistakes. It's okay that they're hurting other people. But if other people do it, they crucify you. It's okay for the Biden's family to do corruption, but if Trump does corruption, there's no forgiveness. They're damned forever. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm just saying, how do we react to that? How do we react to something like that?
That's a tough one.
No.
Do you want to take a crack at that one, Sujata? Hey, Michelle, you're in the Matrix tonight. Do you know why?
Forgive them too, but at the same time, you're still corrupt and doing what you're doing. What do you do with that?
Michelle, we didn't hear your question. Are you moving around? Because you're a little in the Matrix.
Why? Let me go.
Whoa. Hello?
Can you hear me okay?
Now we can hear you, yes. Can you?
Okay, I went in and out.
Yep. Can you ask your question again?
How do you forgive? Like, I'm talking about the Biden family and the Trump family. There's an example. They're doing a lot of corruption. There's a lot of things going on in that family. But they're trying to crucify Trump and his family. What they did, what they're doing. You know, say they did what they're doing. The Democrat Party or whatever. I don't mean to get political, but I just go by what I see on the news and what they're doing. And they crucify, and they're trying to put Trump to the ringer. They're looking for any little thing, anything wrong, right? But you hear all this corruption from the Biden family, and they're saying, "Oh, it's okay, let the son, the son's in drugs or whatever." This computer corruption, and what do we do? They never admit their mistakes. They're not going to. Do we forgive them or what? And then they're crucifying someone else for doing what they're doing. Actually, if you want to think of it that way.
No,
and they're teaching the kids they're like, people are confused. I am.
I think it occurs to me that there's a set of double standards. I think that's what I'm starting to hear out of this conversation over the past couple of days, is that there are double standards. It depends who you are, who's holding your feet to the fire, and who's out to get you.
Mm-hmm. If I steal a candy bar, oh, we want you in jail. If someone else steals a candy bar, oh, they get scot-free because of who they are, right?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it has double standards, definitely. And what do we do as Christians? We pray for them, even though they're like that. I guess God's the one that judges them at the end, because they may go scot-free and doing everything wrong. So at the end, it's God, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I like what Fionn wrote in the back channel. To determine the number of mistakes they made by the head of Pens, because these mistakes negatively affect the team and the customers in the coming days. And an answer will put one solution to stop these mistakes. We also identify one of the sections affected by these errors, and we must also focus again on our work and emphasize monitoring, and also hold a meeting with the team to tighten control of the company. And you can do that in the space of with a company. And I think that's just an awesome opportunity, right? And with a company, that to me makes it occur to me that the rules ought to be more stringent for a company than for an individual coming into the store. Does that make sense, Michelle?
Yeah, it does. At least complete sense.
And I think when it comes to these political situations, or any of these what I would call high-level situations, I think the one thing that we forget is that the president has the power to forgive, right? Mm-hmm. He has the power to, and I can't remember the name, the name of the, a presidential pardon. That's what it's called. Then the question for me is, if that's what he's doing for his son, then is that okay? Because it's like saying, you have diplomatic immunity. Well, when it's other countries, they do have diplomatic immunity. There is a lot that they say about that, and they do have grace, right? Well, where does that grace end, and where does it begin? That's the question I think that we're rolling around at the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Making me think right now.
Yeah. Sujata. Oh, no, Sujata's on the phone. Okay. I'm going to send a quick Shirley, come on up. Jessica, come on up if you can, or if you guys want to throw something in the back channel. I mean, for me, this is one of those areas for me where, like, I don't have a solution. I don't see an option. What I am seeing is that it's an issue, and we will have hundreds of conversations about this issue, and yet a lot of times, as Sujata shared at the very beginning with her example of in the store, the small person, i.e. the individual family person, gets their feet held to the fire. Yet the company, when they make a mistake, there's no punishment for them. They don't get, it's not like, oh, well, I'm sorry we mischarged you. Because we mischarged you, we're going to give that to you for free today. You know, so there's no, the rules are much stricter one way than they are the other way. And I think that was in our conversation, when we were looking at how do we treat people who make mistakes, and how does it happen when it's a company versus an individual, I think we're not responsible for the impact that it shows on society. Just make your company big enough and it can get away with all sorts of inconsistencies. The bigger the company, the more they can get away with. Does that communicate, Michelle?
Yeah. Know what I was also thinking as you're speaking? I was thinking about all this is going to harden their conscience, like their heart. It's going to be harder to receive Christ because it's okay for them to do this. And they don't get punished for it.
Say that one more time.
Because it's okay for them to sin. It's okay for them not to admit their mistakes. It's okay to get immunity from all this, the companies, the political arena. Doesn't this harden their heart? And it'd be harder for them to get to know Christ. I mean, isn't there a point where your heart just doesn't know what right from wrong is? You're not going to feel for other people's needs or want to care for them.
Yes.
You're just going to have, you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. I think one of the things you're pointing to is some of these places where there's dictatorships around the world.
Mm-hmm.
They get to a position or a place of power where they believe they are above the law, or that they are the law, and therefore they can do whatever they wish.
So to me, their heart is so hardened that is there to a point where they can't receive love. That's what I'm saying. Or love back. Or you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think no. I think you're saying just like, you know, when we talk about it in biblical terms, some of the people from the Roman army, you know, the commanders from the Roman army, when we look and see what they have to put, what they had to do, some of the choices they had to make to follow the rules.
Yeah, like did a lot of these soldiers wanted to put Jesus on a cross? Did some of them have a conscience? Did they feel what they were told to do it, or did they have the choice to say, "Hey, I'm not doing this"?
No, I mean,
this bothers me.
Well, that's just it. You don't have a choice as a soldier. I mean, when you become a soldier, you are there to follow your commander. You gave, when you made the choice to become a soldier, you gave up the right to say no.
So if a soldier tells you to kill this innocent person and you're forced to do it, you have to do it.
If you are following to follow orders, yes. And that's, and
Wow.
this is part of the dilemma, right? In some of the wars in Vietnam and in the Middle East, you know, there's so many times when, you know, and you've heard the conversation where they say it's about collateral damage. What's the collateral damage? To save them, are we okay killing babies and women and children to kill the 15 or 20 people that we need to, quote unquote, the terrorists that need to be killed? Is that collateral damage okay? I mean, think about the first, I mean, this is a wild, you know, we've taken a little bit of a wild tangent, but think about dropping that first atomic bomb.
Oh yeah.
You know that atomic bomb, think of the choice the president had to make at the time. Do we allow and continue to allow hundreds and thousands of people to die being shot at each other, back and forth, flying planes, bombs, boats, submarines? Or do we drop this bomb that will stop?
That makes sense.
Well, I tell you this, it would,
I don't know.
it would be
Just kill millions of people with that bomb.
It would be a tough choice to make. I would have a very tough choice.
I remember that scene with that little girl running from that bomb. And she had no clothes on, and she was screaming. It was a famous picture.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember that.
No, I don't. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And you know, to stop the war, was that okay to do that?
There was no other way to do it. That's their thinking.
Yep.
I don't know how I can handle being in that position.
What was that?
I don't think I can handle being in that position.
And I think,
no way.
I think that becomes part, that's the top question inside of making mistakes, right? I mean, I can't think of a woohoo.
Like,
that's a big one.
It did stop the war, right?
Yeah, it did.
It did. And maybe it changed them. I mean, should I say it's supposed to be a good thing? I don't know. It stopped the work, but killed millions of people anyways. It's mind-boggling, Coach.
Yep. It's something that I mean, this is a tough question. Sujata, are you available on StreamYard? Are you still there? Okay. I think Michelle, my podcast, you just became my new podcast partner, Michelle.
Yeah, looks like that. Okay. Sounds okay. It sounds good. It's all good.
I think as we handle these questions, I think we start to see why there's a Senate, why there's a House of Representatives. And then Fionn is with us. Look at that. Woo woo. So Fionn, are you able to come off mic? Is your mic working yet?
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. What are your thoughts about all this? So JP wrote in the back something. I think this is: consumers are smarter and more informed now. They have more choices. Companies have to play fair or lose business. There you go. Larger companies just fail or grow slower because they have thousands or millions of customers and stockholders. Very true. Now, we stepped into this conversation about making a mistake with the atomic bomb. I'd love to, I'd love to have you come up on stage, JP. If not, if you want to answer that or throw something in the room chat, I'll say it out loud. I think this, to me, when we have, when you look at getting a majority vote in the Senate and House of Representatives here in the US to drop that atomic bomb. And by the way, Michelle, here's something I didn't think about till right now. How do you keep it a secret?
Oh, we lost you, Coach.
No. I said, how do you keep it a secret?
I don't know.
Right? So who makes the choice? So ultimately the president makes the choice, right?
Yeah.
So he carries the weight of that choice.
A lot of stress on the president. That's for sure.
So now as the leader of a country, you're in that spot. As the leader of a store, what's your policy for making a mistake? Do you fire the employee?
Wow, depends how serious it is. Or how many chances will you give that employee?
Exactly. So there is a tremendous amount of communication back and forth in this instance, isn't there?
Yes, definitely.
Yep. So we were discussing consumer-based companies, and we just suddenly jumped to the atomic bomb.
I know. I was thinking about, you have I'm thinking about, I'm going political a little bit here. I'm thinking about, Trump was smart. He had the right leaders backing him.
Right, but he's still.
I don't think he made all the choices on his own. I think that people were giving him suggestions.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, you and I both know that it's not always the president that makes the choices.
No, and he's got to get voted from the Congress too.
Congress, the Senate, along all the way along on these conversations. And when you look at how do we treat people who make mistakes, we just jumped from our neighborhood person right to the top of the food chain and started looking at the president.
How about that woman? I told you about the cat problem.
With the which?
Remember with the cat? I'm letting her keep my cat. That I was wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, because at some point, you, as an individual, when we're looking at individuals, we can forgive people and choose to take the high road.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the difficulty that I see is how do we take the high road as you climb the ladder in the leadership roles of, i.e., a company, i.e., the country, i.e., the world. How do you forgive?
See, we little people can't do much, right? No matter how, sometimes even when we protest, they're going to still.
Well, I mean, look at the whole situation with the, and now you're probably going to remember this better than me, but in Tiananmen Square, where that person stepped in front of the tank, lay down in front of the tank on the.
Oh, that's right. And they ran over him.
So, when you look at all of these things, what happens when a dictatorship gets to the point that the people finally say, we've had enough?
Risk your life.
And they determine and they look at, you've made so many mistakes. We are not interested. Sujata, are you there? I see you. Are you back?
Yes.
This was on the phone.
No, she's back.
Oh, okay.
So Sujata, you've missed us taking this conversation about how do we treat people who make mistakes. We've taken it all the way now to the atomic bomb in
Hiroshima.
I just like the way the conversation organically just grows and goes in different directions. It's like a river flowing, not on a designated course.
Yeah, if you take a look at the back channel, I think we threw JP Freeman for a loop.
Yeah, we went through. Yeah, we were going back and forth. It's a hard question. It's like, it makes you think, Coach.
It does.
The pastors have, even the pastors have moral obligations too.
Well, of course they do. What are they? And think about somebody comes in confession, right? Comes in and wants confession and comes in and says, I've just murdered somebody.
And that priest is not allowed to say anything, supposedly.
Yeah, where's the line drawn?
No one draws the line, right?
Say that again. Go ahead, Sujata.
I'm saying if you have a confession like that, then you have to step out of your box and you have to take the right action. You can't say that, okay, the rules are that I have to listen and not say anything. I mean, then we should have confession box without any human being in it. Then you just say it to the walls and go out of the confession box.
Well, oh, did you read the back channel, Sujata?
I'm reading.
Okay. I want to know I want to hear your thoughts about what was said back there. So we spoke about Hiroshima. That's where it was, Michelle. Thank you for reminding me.
That's where it was.
Was it a mistake to drop the atomic bomb? When you think of how many million people died, or was it the can we be okay with that and say, well, it was the lesser of all the evils and it stopped the war? How do we deal with that level of a mistake?
I wouldn't really say that dropping an atomic bomb can be termed as a mistake.
So was it the right move?
Anything which costs lives of people, how can it be the right move? We talked
Because
just of common sense not being common, no?
right, well, because as we were speaking about it, we said that if the reason they did it was to stop all of the other killing that was going on around the world by the soldiers and planes and boats and submarines and all of that.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
So how do you end the war then, Sujata?
It's so simple. You know that killing is not something that is or should be done, or it's not like, oh, you're having a cup of tea and it's a normal thing to do.
Okay,
See,
so the whole Western world sits down and says, okay, we're going to stop killing, and the Nazis and the Japanese and the Italians keep killing.
nobody should be doing that. All nations, we have United Nations, we have all kinds of organizations where people sit together and decide, or should be deciding. If you have a no war policy, if you decide that you're going to only do scientific research or developments which is for the greater good of humanity, is it so difficult?
It is if one side says no.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So it comes down to human beings who are in control, who have the control to morally look at themselves. I don't
Right.
think if they ask the people at any country would ever say, "Oh, we want a war." I don't think the common man would ever say that.
So okay, and this is awesome, because I believe Mussolini and Hitler and I can't remember the Japanese leader's name were, yes, we want to take control, and this is how we take control, because other people aren't going to follow us.
That's the whole point, Coach Les. It's always to do with control, whether it's one person trying to control the others, or it's leaders who are trying to control.
Sujata, I get it, and I'm curious to hear your answer, because I understand that sometimes, if we sit back and do nothing, they just walk right over us. So we're going to die.
No, so when we the people, if we have an election process and we choose our leaders, then we have to choose carefully and we have to hold them accountable and responsible.
There was
We
no
don't do that.
there was no choice about leadership in in Germany. Hitler took over. Mussolini took over. They were generals at the top of the army.
Yes, but so many countries in the history of the world have protested and have, there's been uprisings and there have been mass movements to
Mhm.
overthrow regimes which are,
Yes, and I agree. And overthrowing, how do they overthrow? They have to kill to overthrow.
No, you can also have peaceful protest. If the whole country peacefully goes into protest mode, then you can. It may take longer. It may have, you might still be killed by, forces, but you can just all align that we are not going to subscribe this. I come from a country where we are known to have got independence, right? By peaceful methods. I mean, as far as peaceful methods can go, right?
Well, but so this is the point I'm saying. At some point, there comes a moment where somebody has to step into the ring to stop the fight.
Yeah.
Now, and the question where we went all the way back, by the way, Jaime's, is we went all the way back to how do we treat people who make mistakes? Somebody has to step up and say, enough is enough. And as much as I look at the atomic bomb, and which, by the way, we jumped from talking about a little tea bag in the grocery store to an atomic bomb. Michelle, I don't think Sujata is going to let you and I run the conversation again.
No. I already told you from the little bit of gist that I heard that I love the way
Yeah, I know,
the
right?
the topic grows organically into various this thing. It's like the river or a stream, which just
I'm laughing, Sujata, because
I know you're laughing. I know that you see the humor in it. I'm
but
just joining the banter.
it's how do we go at what point, right? We talked about, and you can see Fion's conversation in the room chat. At what point does the top, where do we get to the top? And here we are in the 24-hour Bible study, right? When do we get to the top? And somebody say, okay, enough is enough. And I'm gonna throw something really wild into the mix now. Look what happened with Noah's Ark. God had enough of what was going on the planet. And he spoke to Noah, and Noah built an ark to save humanity and save the animals. And then God flooded the entire world. Like, we talk about an extreme.
That's an extreme, Coach.
I mean, what do you think to that, Sujata?
Yeah, so we have the extremes, but we can start small at our levels, right? First, let's fix that. Even for small things, we make a big, huge amount of noise. Why don't we just start to look at human beings with compassion, with understanding, with acceptance? Because there are so many different hues to it. We have different thought processes, backgrounds, mindsets, which some of it which we are conditioned, so we never even think for ourselves. Let's first start doing those small steps in our around us. Let's look and not be so judgmental. Let's not put people down for mistakes when it could be a small thing. If we can gently tell somebody, or say, if somebody says sorry, then let it go. If it happens again and again, as we discussed yesterday, then it's not a mistake. A mistake can be, one time, twice, maybe thrice, but beyond three times, I don't think it's a mistake. And your sorries do not work, then you know that it is intentional. And when things become intentional, then it's a different story altogether.
Hi, Maze. Hi, Dipti.
Hello, Coach.
Thank you for joining us. We have a very interesting question that has taken a couple of huge hiccups. And well, thank you for coming up on stage. And here's the first question, and then I'll tell you the hiccups and the size of the hiccups so we can dance in the conversation some more. So the question was, how do we treat people who make mistakes? And we looked at the courtroom dramas that happened here, that have happened here on Clubhouse. How do they occur, and are they effective, and do they make a difference? We looked at Sujata shared a conversation about a grocery store, and when we as a customer in the grocery store make a mistake, we get our feet held to the fire, and sometimes we can get in trouble. Like they look at us as if we're stealing, and they may come down on us and actually involve the police. Whereas if the grocery store makes a mistake and they overcharge, they charge too many times, there's necessarily no repercussion for them. And we went from that scenario to all the way to the atomic bomb. When the atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima and killed hundreds of thousands of people, and it stopped a war. How do we determine, was that okay? What is the thought process behind some of these choices to end? And I'll just put it in simple terms from my point of view. Are we okay killing that many people to stop a war that could have continued and killed and used up, quote unquote, used up resources and killed millions of people over the course of time? What does it look like? What are some other solutions? What are some ways in which, and going all the way back, how do we treat people who make mistakes? What are some ways in which we can create an opportunity? And then when it comes to, ultimately, we just shared about Noah and God filling an ark with a family of people and all of the animals, and then eradicating the rest of the world. Then God says that's never going to happen again, makes a promise. And then Christ goes to the cross to take over all of the sin so that we can forgive. And God has forgiven humanity for their ability to sin, as long as you take the path of submission and accept and come to Christ, offer up your commitment to Christ, and ask for forgiveness. So ultimately, those are the extremes of the conversation, and would love to hear from, first I'm gonna pop to Maze, because Maze, you popped up on stage first. What are your thoughts about this? Do you have an example for us? Do you have a thought that you'd love to share on this? It's become from tiny to huge in this conversation, and what I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Maze, and welcome.
Hello. Always becomes huge because it's so controversial. I mean, we can't just pray the bullies will go away, right?
Right.
We're not here to judge them, right? We're not here to, but I do believe we're here to stop it from happening to others. And the only way that's going to happen is to stand up. But how do you stand up with the pureness of love and God's intention, right? That's that thing they're always balancing out. So my example that's small right now and simple, because we can have big ones, but I'm gonna stay small, okay? We're gonna use one example, okay? I have a neighbor and neighbors, and they don't know me. Just moved in here. We're building on the land. They don't want anybody building on this land. It's been their park for 20 years. So they have now collectively come together and filed every violation possible, blah, 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 the story, okay? So the first time they lied, I thought, well, they just don't know me, right? So I thought, okay, how do you have to, I'm obviously here to show them what love is, pureness is. So I gave him pictures of my son that passed away. I gave him pictures of my house that burned down, not for empathy, right? But that's me, right? But I also gave him pictures of what the house is going to look like and what the future, because they're just afraid of that change, right? They're just based off of fear or pride. I think this one has to do with pride. Anyhow, long story. I actually have proof that they're lying and they're harassing. So what do I do with that, right? Because revenge is not the answer, and violence is not the answer. We know that, right? I mean, it's not the answer. So it's how do you change the mindset of a collective group that their perspective has grown so big that they lost why we live, why we love, why we give, why we're here. So how do you, we can't just pray for them. I mean, the first reaction is like, I'll just pray for them and I'll wave every time I go by and I'll do this, right? But now I think I'm going to stand up and start going up the chain of command of this person's place of work, right? So no one should have the right to abuse their position because they're in a senior position and because others are afraid of them or don't want to get involved, right? That's that. Now what? And so you pray and meditate on it, and hopefully those answers show and you still stay strong in the place you come from. The problem is we need to do this together. It's going to be to counteract all this violence, all this hatred. We've got to come together as loving people to balance it back out. Life is all about balance. Good, evil, sun, light, day, right? Sunshine and rain. It's keeping the balance. It doesn't mean we get rid of the bad because it's just not going to happen, right? That's the reality of our world that we live in the present moment. All right, I won't go any deeper. You got the gist of me. May's on mute.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Dipti.
Yes, Coach, you said a lot of things, from grocery store to the world war that happened, like the incident of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, when it comes to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that, what is that, nuclear bomb incident, that is between two countries, isn't it? And they wanted to take revenge, because Japanese Japan waged a war against US, and they kind of destroyed the Pearl Harbor in revenge, just to take revenge of that. They kind of attacked Hiroshima and Nagasaki by throwing a nuclear bomb on them. Now these two countries should have come to a compromise, and as you said, forgiving, being Christ-like and forgiving could have happened. But yet, many people they would have had a thought like, you have attacked our people, and like many of us died, and how can we not be, the human nature to take revenge. Even during the Old Testament we can see that eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, that kind of mentality comes in. So here they should come to a compromise, at least try to come. I know that it's a big thing, a big impact has been created, where you lose a lot of lives, and it's not easy. I know that, but yet despite that, they could have come to a thing like they could have come to a compromise before itself, and kind of instead of throwing a nuclear bomb or something like that, they could have chosen something else, or they could have come to a compromise and let that go. Letting go is hard again, like, but we can strive towards that, especially when it comes to this very small thing like grocery store. Maybe even I could even I got a valid point from Sujata also. When I came in, she was talking about saying sorry. Like, if someone is saying sorry and they are doing it again and again, then that is not going to yield any fruit. At one point of time, you have to cut them off. You have to set some boundaries, and be open and be frank. Like, saying sorry doesn't mean anything if you keep doing it again and again. And things like that, like, make them understand. But of course, personally, we should forgive them, because when it comes to personal level, you have your own thing, like where you have to forgive, because it's not good or healthy for you on a personal level. So it's better to forgive. And on the other hand, coming to a compromise, or something like that. And as Maze also said, balancing is the key. So balancing it, and learning to let go of things kind of helps. So that is what I wanted to share. With that, I'm yielding my mic, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dipti. Sujata, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I wrote in the chat after Maze had her share, and this is what I will say. You don't sit quietly when any kind of abuse or injustice has been done. You do stand up and speak, sometimes for yourself and sometimes for others. If something is happening in front of you, which happens all the time, and we keep quiet saying it's not a part of our problem, it's not happening to me, so I shall look the other way, that's when our lives begin to end, when we stop talking about things that matter. And that's how it escalates into a huge global kind of mindset, because that's what most people do. The bad doesn't happen because of the bad people. The bad happens because of the silence of the good people. And that's what it is. So even when two countries are warring, or they're doing things which is against humanity, the rest of the world and population are sitting quietly. Why? We need to protest, even if that's the least thing that we can do, whether our voices are heard or not, but we can say something. We don't say. And yet, oxymoron like, we can go into clubhouse rooms and tear down a person's character by making him to stand and listen while we discuss whether he did the right thing or the wrong thing, and how it becomes such a big issue without knowing facts, when we are not even involved and we don't even know that this thing. What gives people the right to engage in such a thing? Look at our rooms. We have a lot of topics on critical thinking. How many people come into the room, Coach Les? And look at those other rooms where there are hundreds of people doing what, listening what. Let me ask you, how does it impact anybody? What's the learning? I have gone into so many rooms and I just see that some people talk, the others listen, and that's the end of the story.
Yep. I mean, I'm yeah, I don't have a magic solution.
None of us do.
I think that it's a conversation that I think you said it very well in the beginning. It has to start and grow organically. We mentioned, and by the way, I don't know all the details of this, but Tiananmen Square, with the person in the tank. Do you remember that, Sujata?
Yes, a little bit, but not fully.
And that started a movement, and it started a conversation that spread around the world. And I think that, you've spoken very accurately about, in these big rooms, what gets accomplished? Nothing. It's like a soap opera. So how do we create change, quote unquote? And, change is a word I'm not thrilled with. I prefer transformation. Change just, to me, change gives the appearance that it's not definite. It colors something. It's like a chameleon changes color. Transformation for me is where it literally, like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, the DNA completely transforms, and it can't go back. It can't go back to being a caterpillar, whereas a chameleon changes color because it can change back to the other colors. So how do we create something that creates a transformation as opposed to creates a change? Does that make sense, Sujata?
Yes, there are different perspectives, and what you're saying is actually covering different perspectives. And here I will just say, you have to have a mindset change for the transformation to happen.
Yep.
Because if you have a certain kind of a mindset, unless you start to change that mindset, the transformation will not happen. For the caterpillar to become the butterfly, still there has to be a change before that final process happens. So we do need to change our mindsets. And unless we do that and look at ourselves in the mirror and take some decisions that we, will start to at least think in an open manner and not just go with the flow, it's going to be very, very slow. Some of us, we try to have conversations which lead people to start thinking, because some of us don't even think. We are programmed not to think actually by society.
Yeah. I see Gina popped in and came up on stage. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Gina. Long time.
Hello, I just put some granola in my mouth. Hold on a
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I was so happy to see Sujata. So we haven't talked in a while, not because of want, but because my WhatsApp is not letting me in there. So I haven't been able to call her, but she's been on my mind. And I just love to hear her speak because she just is so full of wisdom and good sense.
Thank you, Gina.
How is everybody?
Well, our goal is to solve the world's issues tonight.
Oh, I do that every night. I stay up, and I've done that ever since I was a little girl. I just stay up, and nobody's asked me. When I was a kid, I was like, I'm up all night thinking of world peace. I have a trinket from my aunt, and it was a big, huge Coca-Cola commercial for it was a big
Coca-Cola commercial anyway. But I came across it when I was moving, and it just reminded me of how I used to think when I was a little girl, because I just thought it was so easy. Why can't people just get along? Why can't people just love each other? Why is there pain and suffering and hurt in the world? And I just remember just being so naive about the world, and that it just wasn't that easy. People have their hatreds and mindsets. As Sujata said, they have a mindset that their position is right. And some people will stop at nothing, and they don't see the other person at all. There's no compromise. And I'm not sure fully of what you were speaking of before I popped in the room. But I didn't even tell you what that trinket says, but it says, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
Oh,
It's two birds.
I'd like to teach
with a bird's nest.
the world to sing in perfect harmony.
Yeah. And I don't know, that song struck me as a little girl, and it just was very thought-provoking for me when I first heard it. It just, it honestly was a song that kept me up at night, because I really, really prayed for what seemed the impossible. So I'm not sure if you can reset the room for me so I know what you were talking about. I would love that.
Sujata would love to do that.
See how Coach Les makes people do certain things, right?
I love it.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Michelle.
So Gina, we have been talking for the last 2-3 days as to how do we treat people who make mistakes, and do we have a different standard for us and we were talking of courtroom dramas in Clubhouse where uh, we talk about other people's mistakes on an open platform, and we were asking the question, how does it affect us as a society? So that's how it was. My definition right from the beginning is, first you have to define what's a mistake, and mistakes which are done again and again, then they are not mistakes if they are intentional acts of doing harm to others. Mistakes actually are accidents which you might have done inadvertently with no this thing. It could be big or small, but it's something that you didn't do it deliberately. And we don't need to put people uh, down for small things, big things, if we know where the intention was. So those were the thought processes which were flowing for the last 2 days. And today, of course, we went from a sachet in a store to atomic bombing while I was away on the phone.
There you go, Gina. That's a very quick one, but there you go. Maze, go ahead. You want to add to that, Maze?
Well, it just kind of makes me think, we talk about Jesus dying for our sins, but Jesus came to this planet, if you think about it, right? Had his disciples, and there was still evil. I mean, talk about the greatest person that could walk the earth. Still didn't change the good and bad. It still existed. I don't know. I just thought about that.
Yes, Maze. Actually, my son keeps telling me that Jesus came and went and we have not changed. We still operate in that way. There's still evil. There's still a lot of abuse, wrongdoing, right? So even if somebody gave up their life, we didn't change. We continue to do acts which affect us because we actually, I think, forget to be human. And we always place the onus and responsibility on others to, do all the acts of kindness, courage, and all. We shouldn't be doing.
Wow. So when I think of Jesus, I think of what he said when Pontius Pilate was commanding he be put to death. And I remember his words were, "Forgive them, for they know not what they're doing." And I think that is so poignant because I don't even know if poignant is the right word. But anyway, because of the fact that I think we all come to this world with, first of all, we're all made in the image of God. And I think Jesus was too. And we all are at different levels of our humanity and our understanding that God is within us. We have just as many powers, from my understanding of my faith, that and how we use those powers, determines our eternal life, right? That's how I was taught. And I think that there's some people that just don't understand it. They're either sold their soul or they are sold less. And it's a challenge that people who are good and have good intention, we have to strive to just change the world and people in that way, as with one person at a time. And that's how when I think of people that are hurtful or doing wrong, or they don't see the harm they're doing on other people, I try to, and I didn't do this when I was younger. I used to be mean, be mad for longer periods of time. But as I've gotten older and I've had so many things really, to me, egregious happen, that just didn't make sense, that was how I was able to let it go and move forward and just tell myself that they're in a different stage in their life than I'm at. Maybe I'm a little bit more, not that I'm better than anybody, that's not what I'm saying, but maybe I'm a little bit more evolved in my humanity than that person is. And it's like, we're not supposed to judge other people, and maybe the people that are the most heinous and harmful are the ones that we need to show the most compassion for, because what was it that would cause them to want to be hurtful to others? That is a question I have, but not that I want to roll out a red carpet for someone like that, but it's almost like not doing, just don't do to others, as they would do to you, do unto others. And there's just some people out there that are just cruel and heartless and inhumane. And it's like, do I want to be like that in my decision to punish them or get back at them for the harm that they caused me? And I always say no. As much as it as much as you want to, because I think it's a human reaction to get revenge or to see someone else hurt just as much as you were hurting. I think that if we're to evolve or to be more like Christ, then we're supposed to tame that aspect of ourselves and not have those actions of revenge or punishment, because I feel like we're no better than that person if we lower ourselves to that. I think when we lead by example, that, you know, we're not going to do the same hurtful things, then you may capture some people to learn from that. Maybe not the person that was doing the harm, but maybe others around him. I'm not sure. That's just my thought.
Okay. Gina, this is my perspective. Firstly, we had a room also in this room where we talked about placing responsibility of our actions on God. My perspective is this: we have the ability to be God or the devil through our actions, and actions speak louder than words. And there's something as every action has a consequence also. So to absolve ourselves of that responsibility and say that, okay, we leave it on God, and we are not responsible and everybody should forgive us. I don't think that's the way it is, because if that be the case, we would have no laws, no judicial systems, nothing. Every crime would go unpunished. For example, let me put it now this way. So, when we talk of forgiving people who are cruel and hurtful, my question is, so when my daughter got raped, what was I supposed to do? Just tell my daughter, forget about it. We forgive the guy and just move on. So where does the person not get punished or not be held accountable or responsible for what they did and serve their time or bear the consequences, whatever it may be? Then people will just get away with murder, which actually literally many people do. But even if we don't go to that extreme, in every day of our life, the person who cheats you in your business, I mean, Coach Les has shared that about his personal thing. I have shared in my book how I was cheated. So, was I supposed to just let it go? No, it's not an eye for an eye or a revenge. But definitely, you have to stand up against any kind of abuse, any kind of violence, any kind of intimidation. And you have to say that I don't accept this, and you have to make it clear that now people will call that drawing boundaries, but it's also bringing out into the open what is acceptable and not acceptable. So even if it's a minor thing in your relationship, it all starts when you start to let it go and say, okay, I will not even protest. You have to do that. And that is my perspective, and that's where I stand from. Thank you.
Oh, I have to step in on this one if you don't mind.
Of course.
Judicial system, though, the way it's operated, is taking this victim and putting them on stage just to have them relive a trauma over and over again. And then not only have to relive the trauma, but for somebody, in order to win their case, take their character and use anything they've ever done in their lives against them. And that's how we're supposed to stand up, by being punished for speaking up. It's not the way to. Sorry, I had a voice on that one.
I agree with you on that one.
You are right, Mace, and that's what happened in my case. But I still decided that I would go for that form of justice, because that's the only way that the guy would get what he deserved, and I and my daughter could move on, because there has to be a closure. We can't live with it, and I didn't want her to live with any kind of guilt or any kind of thing where she felt she was responsible, because that's how society makes us. And yes, we have to relive the whole trauma, which I did for 8 long years. But at the end of the day, I did get some form of justice and there was closure. It allowed the family to move on. If I had not done even that, I don't think I would be here speaking.
And I agree with that. You have to do it that way. That you did it, and that it's just, we have to evolve in the way that it's being done. Is more my comment, right? Like we have no other choice. Here's my choice. I have to stand up in a court. I have to go through this ridiculous. I mean, God, just watching all the court cases, right? It is not the way justice is served. I'm in this space of life. We have learned so much through what we've gone through the last 2 years that there's, I said evolution, but Coach, how do you use the word progression? What did you say?
Which word for where? I'm sorry. I mean,
growth in general. You used a great word, and I can't remember.
Oh my!
How we change from we evolve, right? We're supposed to be evolving, but some
Yes.
things stay exactly the same. I mean, it's just, and we can see it. Sorry. Earlier today, I've had hidden inside of me. We're in this time of truth, right? Everybody knows, it's time to speak up.
Yes.
But I'm tired of, I'm already past speaking up. I'm done with it happening. I'm done with, for me right now, it's children. Their rite of passage is molestation. I mean, it's so high. Most people you talk to in a room, out of 5 of us, 4 of us have been sexually traumatized. We've got to change somewhere further down the line, right? When I grew up, it was stranger danger. Why are we not teaching these children that it's not okay, right? And they're going to take you, and they're based off all the, God, we've all lived through it. But I try to open rooms on it. No one comes in. No one thinks, tell me the last time you heard or in a conference about making a difference with children being molested. Where? Of how we're going to change that. We just talk about what happened to us. I'm past that. So I'm in that space right now, which, Coach, you know me for a long time now on Clubhouse, but I'm in this, like, it's not enough. It's got to change. And how do I do it? And how do I do it together with a collective group that is doing it through love and wanting to make a difference in a kind and peaceful way?
No, and I see what you're saying. If I can jump in just a second here, I completely get. I think there's something else here, though, Maze, because I want to share something with you. Here we are, as we teach our little kids, stranger danger. And we say, stay away from strangers. We teach them to stay away from strangers all the way up until they're in their, 11, 12, 13 years old. Then we have parties at our home, and we look at our kids and say, come on, don't be so shy. Come and join in. Come and say hello. Come and meet the guests. But for their entire life, they have heard, stay away from strangers. And then we suddenly throw this massive twist into their mind, and we wonder why our kids look at us like we just smoked crack. Because for so long, we've been telling them to stay clear of strangers. And yet I go to places where they don't teach people they teach people to respect strangers, to say hello. We go to small villages, and you listen to how they raise their children in small villages. Even though there's lots of people there. So what's the difference between a lot of people in a small village and a lot of people in a city? There isn't any difference. So why is it that we're not taking time to teach them an elevated level of understanding and teach them the finer nuances of communication right away, which children are capable of learning? We're the ones that go googa gaga googa gaga ooga googa googa to our children and try to speak in their baby language, which just absolutely, I watch this happen and I'm like, what are you saying to your child? Well, I'm just repeating what they're saying to me. Are you kidding me? That's not what they're saying to you. They're communicating the only way they effectively can at this point. Why would you lower yourself to their standard? You're supposed to continue to speak to them like they're listening and learning, which they are, by the way. And it's oftentimes why I have people step back and look and go, wait a minute, think about if this was a computer and you are feeding it information that it stacks on top of itself to become a young person, to become a teenager, to become a young adult, to become adult. You want to make sure that everything you do, say, and the way you're being is elevating them and having them learn and build the foundation, the bricks of who they are as an individual. And to me, that creates an empowering conversation for kids so that when they do become old enough to communicate, they can learn the communications that are effective. They can be mindful of the communications that are being demonstrated by a quote unquote stranger. So that's, I don't know who wants to come off mic and go from there, but there's my 2 cents. And Maze, thanks. You struck a little bit of a chord, and I trust that this stayed inside of the frame of what we're communicating about. Back to you.
I totally agree with you. Learning starts at, day one. I remember when my daughter was born, and for 2 weeks, I would hold her in my arms and I would look at her, and she was just quite beautiful to me, of course. But I would look at her and I would go, and I didn't know what to say to her. I had no idea what to say to this young girl, because I had experienced so much abuse and negativity, and I just was afraid that anything I said to her would harm her. And I did that for 2 weeks, and I said something to a friend of mine, because it was really quite disturbing that every time I held her, I was completely silent. And it was all because I had this absolute fear of saying the wrong thing to her. And mind you, I had babysat for years, and I knew every nursery rhyme and anything I could talk to a child. I had no problem talking to anybody else's child in a loving way. I couldn't understand why I couldn't talk to my own daughter, but that was part of it. It was not wanting to harm her who she was, and to be sure that, she was only getting love and good intentions, and with every breath I took when I spoke to her. And I think that, one of the things about strangers and stuff is I do agree with you that we're not being told. And oftentimes the ones that are the most harmful to us are family associations, the ones, even family members those are some of the people that are even more harmful than a stranger on the street. But I agree with you that, you know, we need to teach children to protect ourselves from, you know, family who's harmful. And I do, instead of, you know, there's ways of discussing that with a child so that they learn to protect themselves without putting themselves in even you know, more harm's way. You know, one of the things that was really important to me with my daughter, because I knew what I experienced when I was young, was when she was in middle school. And you know how kids, they go out with you for a week and then they go out with your friend for a week. And that happens on a regular basis during that time, because kids are just they just don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what they want. And they just, you know, they're at that age where they see a pretty girl and they want to be friends with all the pretty girls. And I told my daughter, I explained that to her. I said, I would rather you not be the girlfriend of any boys, because I don't want you to I didn't want her to experience the hurt of that, of a boy liking you for a week and then liking your best friend for a week, and that revolving emptiness you could feel when you allow yourself to just attach to someone because they asked you. So I did. I asked her to please just say that you're not allowed to have a boyfriend at this age, and that you would like to remain the friends that you are. And she did that. And she did explain to me, she did come back and say to me about how her friend was heartbroken because he went out with her for a week.
All right, everybody, and we're going to shut down StreamYard and continue on Clubhouse. So if you'd like to come and join us, come to the app Clubhouse and find this conversation. And we will be back next week on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard. Thank you so much for visiting, and we're going to shut down the StreamYard now. Thank you so much for visiting the podcast. Look forward to connecting soon.
Those gathering of common...
Coaching with Les has doubled my practice.
We've increased our sales by about 33%, blowing all of our goals out of the water.
In my first 6 months, I actually grew my business with his help over 500%. Literally 500%.
Les Hill is the type of person that invests back in you and back into your company. So if you're looking for a business coach with integrity, choose Les Hill.